tonight we have quite an exciting show. A little bit of change from how it was first announced. We have some good news and bad news for you. Bad news is Ryan Bell is not going to be joining us this evening. But good news, we have someone a little more exciting for the later discourse with our special guest this evening. But John Christy, David Smalley will tell you all about him if you don't know who he is. But John Christy, the Christian pastor that co-starred and produced the film My Week in Atheism with David Smalley, is here this evening, and he's going to be talking with David Smalley later. And they're going to do a Q&A as well. We do have our first speaker coming up to introduce David Smalley, and he's going to give a bit of a talk. Dan Arrow, also a local San Diegan atheist humanist activist. Dan is a writer, an author. Is this still on or good? Okay, thanks. Dan was the former editor for the Richard Dawkins Foundation. He's written for American Atheist Magazine, Huffington Post, Salon, Alternate, good friend, and as C.J. Williman put it, the smartest man with a neck tattoo. So please, if you can put your hands together for Dan Arrow.
I watched that video of CJ saying that over and over and over. I thought I'd make it my ringtone. Today I want to talk to you about coming out atheist and why it's so important to be out and open instead of just, saying to yourself, I'm an atheist, telling your partner you're an atheist, but actually coming out and telling everybody that you're an atheist and why that's so important. The non-religious, or the religious nuns, as they're known, are the largest minority in the U.S. right now. They are about 18%, and the second largest minority, African Americans, make up 14%. So as a group, we actually are one of the biggest voting populations there is. And even though that doesn't mean that we have 18% atheists, because nuns doesn't necessarily mean you don't believe, it means that this is a group of people that are going to be more sympathetic towards atheism, and they're also going to vote more secular. Not necessarily always, but they tend to at least go in that direction. So the real question is if there's only a small group of people that really trust atheists, and there really is a small group, because polls have shown that they'd rather have drug users as presidents than atheists. We're put on par often with rapists as people that they trust in the US. I mean, we're down there because people have a false conception of what atheism is. And so how do we change that? How do we go from being, and we take the 18% and then look at atheists, they calculate that we're about 3%. And I don't believe that for a single second. I do not believe that there's only 3% atheists in this country. But people are afraid to come out. Because when you come out, people look at you like you're a vampire atheist that eats babies and worships Satan. And that's the wrong image. And until we all start coming out, that's the image people are going to get, because they're letting Fox News and other organizations dictate what atheism means. And so how we do that is, tell your family and tell your friends and be public, because what's going to happen is the person that lives next door to you, they might be an atheist as well. And when you come out and they see that your life didn't just go to shambles, they're going to feel comfortable to come out. And then their friends are going to feel comfortable to come out. And that 3% becomes 6%. That 60% becomes 10%. And it continues to grow as more and more people feel comfortable to come out. When I came out, it actually brought my entire family out. I mean, my dad came out and said, I've been an atheist pretty much my whole life. And I was always afraid to say I was. But I came out and became active. He saw how comfortable I was, how easy it was, and he came out, and came out very publicly. Sorry, this is a brand new talk, so I get a little lost when I'm so coming out, you don't have to be the next Christopher Hitchens or the next Dawkins. You don't have to come out and combat everybody about religion. You can come out and never debate religion ever. But if you come out and show that, to your Christian neighbor who may think you're one of the nicest people ever, you help them mow the lawn, you help them pick up their trash, and then you say, oh, by the way, I'm an atheist, I believe in God, you may just change their mind to what they could have preconceived an atheist as being. And they realize that we're not Dracula. But instead, we're doctors, we're teachers, we're office managers, we're street sweepers, we're everything. We're everywhere. And the only way we're going to change minds is if we're visible. There's strength in numbers. Now, coming out is traumatic and can be hard. There's amazing groups out there for people. So if you're sitting out here right now, sitting here right now, if you're not out in public, just being here is a pretty big step. Just coming and sitting down with all these people and being seen among like-minded people is a great start. I would encourage you to reach out to groups like Freedom from Religion. They're an awesome organization that will put you in touch with therapists or counselors or any kind of group that you might need to help with the process. They have an awesome setup for children of clergy. So if you're coming out, but you're in a family of religious people inside the church, they'll support you in that, find people that can help you. And this is great if you know somebody who's coming out because of you and they're in the face of struggle. Put them in contact with someone with recovering from religion, because Sarah Moorhead, who put that organization together, is phenomenal. And she actually won Atheist of the Year at the 2014 American Atheist Convention for her work. And so, like I was saying, we need to increase our visibility. We need to be out and open, but you have to do so safely. If you're going to come to me and say I can't come out because if I come out I'm going to lose my job, I'm not going to push you out the door. You need to do it in a safe manner. If you feel like you have bodily harm, don't come out just because I'm standing up here saying come out. That's a thought. Working? All right. So the whole reason I'm trying to get people to come out isn't to proselytize. I'm not telling you right now to go out and start creating atheists everywhere. You don't need to come out and start telling everybody about atheism and why it's so awesome and their God is stupid. But just by coming out, we're going to change society's perception, and we're going to, instead of letting Fox News or somebody on TV dictate who we are, we're going to start dictating it now. And we're going to change everybody's mind about what atheism is, because we're good people. And I've met many of you at different events who are all great people. And I don't know if I can say much more than feel comfortable and be part of the community. Be ready with open arms to help other people come out. Our groups like this coming together make people see on the outside that when they come out, they're not going to come out and be alone. Because people lose their families when they come out. People lose their friends. And it can be really hard. So if we're ready for them, let's do that. And make yourself available. I post on Facebook all the time that you can come out and I'm ready for you. If you're coming out and you don't feel safe, let me know, because I'll take care of you. I'll find a way to make you feel safe. I'll give you the literature you need. I'll put you in touch with people that you need to be in touch with. And we're all going to take care of each other, because we've built a pretty fantastic community. And that's all I got. But before I go, I have the great pleasure of introducing someone who, he's become a very good friend of mine over the last few months. We finally got a chance to meet recently. He's someone that does something that many of us are too afraid to do, and he actually extends that olive branch to the other side. And he reaches out to Christians and other religions and tries to find that common ground and has that open discussion with them. Something that many of us don't do. I'm pretty guilty of myself just being a firebrand atheist and attacking the other side, but it's people like David that make us look even better than we are. David Smalley, if you don't know, is the host of Dogma Debate Radio, a very popular and successful radio show and podcast. He is also the founder of atheistaudiobooks.com for all of us that are far too lazy to actually read a book. David has made this simple for us so we can now listen to them. He's also the co-star and co-producer of the 2014 movie My Week in Atheism. And I'd like to welcome to the stage my friend David Smalley.
Every mic stand is too tall for me, so shorter ones.
That's going right there. I also talk a lot louder than Dan, so wake up, everybody.
Go for it.
Thank you all for coming out. I certainly do appreciate it. Thank you, Dan, for that wonderful introduction. Before I even get started, I just want us to take a moment to stop and think about Memorial Day, what it's about, and the reason that we're even able to gather and talk about these types of things. The reason that I'm able to sit with Christians and make a movie with John Christy and say something in public like, I don't believe in a particular God, or I think the president is wrong, or I disagree, or I'm able to have a segment on my show called Republicans Say the Darndest Things, and I don't usually have to fear for my life. It's because of the men and women who serve this country and keep us free. So a round of applause for everyone in the armed forces, please. So, the talk today is called Loving Your Enemy. And it's a respectful intervention, because the way I look at this, honestly, is I care about these people. I care about Christians, right? We all know and love Christians. But it was Aristotle that said it is the mark of an educated mind to entertain a thought without accepting it. Let that soak in for a moment. You can entertain someone's thought and still reject it. That doesn't mean that you have to hate them. It doesn't mean that they have to be your enemy. That's why I call it loving your enemy, because we may be social enemies with people, social justice enemies with people, when in reality we can still love them. Because we do. We just love we love too many Christians to hate them all. That was a line that came from John Carf, my publicist and chief operating officer of Dogma today. He just said it on the phone to me one day, and I thought, that's exactly right. There are too many Christians that we love, so if you get it in your mind that Christians are your enemy and you have to hate them, and you have to draw a line in the sand and you call them delusional and you fight with them constantly, it's not really the right mindset to work, because realistically, they are everywhere. They're everywhere. They're in our families, they're our co-workers, they're the people that we're in love with, our business partners, you name it. They're all over the place. So if we take this stance, to me, and Dave Silverman calls it firebrand atheism, fine, that's, I get it. If that works for some people, if that fits with your personality, I understand. I just don't find it to be very productive. Am I asking you to be preaching atheists? Well, humanists don't proselytize. Not at all. We don't proselytize one bit. We just love the hell out of it. Feel free to steal that. When you're talking with a believer, remember why you care in the first place. Don't lose track of why you care about having the conversation. So many times we sit down and we talk with these people and it turns into a fight, and you're arguing and you're screaming. Think about why you're even talking to them. You actually believe in the person, right? You believe in their ability to get it. You're having the conversation because you believe in the person's ability to get it, and you want them to continue thinking, not shut down, put their walls up, and refuse to pay attention to you. Make no mistake, this is an intervention. Take a moment to check this out. He just needs a little help. I have feelings of depression. What can I do about this? Snap at it! 5 cents, please. How effective is this going to be? If you talk to believers in this way, are you actually being logical in your method of talking about logic? Are you being logical in how you're talking with them? So many people think, if I can just get to the counselor, whatever my problems are, they'll just be solved. That counselor will fix my issue, whatever it may be. And then what happens? You sit down, you talk about it, and it's questions. They start asking you questions. Questions and questions and questions. Because it's cognitive behavioral therapy. They ask questions, block the typical habit that you would normally run to, your safe place, they block it. I'm not going to let you get away with this, stop. And then offer a different solution. What do you think you could do besides what you just did? How would that make you feel? It's always questions. I learned, by the way, from my friend Pete Boghossian, that this method already has a name. You may be aware of it, Socratic method. It's from Socrates. It's asking a series of questions to let the believer hear what they are saying on their own. But I do understand that respect can be difficult. Often when we're dealing with believers, especially fundamentalists, Their views are very misogynistic, homophobic, racist, anti-choice. You say to me, David, how can I respect these views? You don't have to respect the views. It's okay to be angry. That's one little pissed off baby right there. We have a lot of reasons to be angry. We have religious war, marriage inequality, gender inequality. These things come from religion. There's a lot of reasons to be angry. Look at all the, you know what, I'm going to take a drink of water for a second and let you look at all the reasons to be angry. It's very clear that a lot of these things that we're fighting against have origins in religious belief. We do have a few more reasons to be angry. There's that guy. Just their faces just kind of piss me off. But let's talk about that anger. It is okay to be angry. When I tell you to be respectful, I'm not saying to lie. I'm saying to ask yourself, is it going to be productive to be angry? Is that angry action productive? You can't undo a lifetime of indoctrination in a single conversation, especially if you're yelling at them. Because if I come to you and I yell in your face, you're going to put up your defenses and you're not listening anymore. You're just focused on defending yourself. You're focused on not looking like an idiot in front of whoever is watching. Ask yourself, is your anger really at your own failure of instantly deconverting them? The more they put up their walls and the more angry you get, you're mad. Are you mad at them? Or are you mad at yourself because you can't make them see the truth as you see it? We do want them to come back. We want them to research. We want them to continue searching. I don't put a lot of big paragraphs in my presentations, but this one is important. While religion as a whole may deserve ridicule, and you're very well within your rights to be angry at the atrocities caused by belief, directing that anger toward the believer can often be counterproductive and drive them back into their religion for safety. It's not what we want. So, I offer what I call a diplomatic approach. Some people have called it a David Smalley approach. I would never call it that. I would never insinuate that you should call it the David Smalley approach. I would never do that. I want you to look at it as diplomacy. You have to understand sometimes respect is difficult. You know, you have to understand the believer. You find common ground with them. Find out where you can be on the same page with them. Admit your own doubts and imperfections. Encourage skepticism. That's the biggest thing. You're not necessarily trying to drag them out of their belief system. You just want them to be skeptical of it. Help believers understand skeptics. Help them discover their own skepticism. Show them a safe landing place and ask them questions. You're believing in the person, not the ideology. Understand how the believer combines their ideology with their personality. This is something that so many atheists don't seem to get. That when you let go of your religion and you're able to separate it all, you don't get offended if someone says, yeah, atheism is wrong. It doesn't really piss you off. It doesn't make you angry. You're like, you know. Or if you have a favorite sports team and someone talks bad about that sports team, that's your opinion. Because you've been able to separate the ideology from who you are as a person. Believers haven't done that yet. My friend and Christian filmmaker John Christy is here tonight. And right after my talk, we're actually going to be up here taking questions. We actually produced the film My Week in Atheism together. He's here tonight and we're going to be talking. And in the film, you'll hear him say to me, I am that religion. You would never say, I am atheism. We don't connect that. So when you're talking with believers, understand that they do. So when someone like Lawrence Krauss says, it's okay to attack the ideas but not attack the person, I think that's missing the point. I love Lawrence Krauss dearly, but I think he's wrong on this point because I agree that it's okay to attack the ideas. I get it and I understand that and agree with it. But understand that when you attack the idea, they see it as you attacking them. And I'll get more into that when we talk about group psychology. You address the ideas and values with skepticism rather than intentional ridicule. Approach it from the standpoint of explaining your position, not immediately discrediting theirs. I was talking with my mom one time, and we were going through these steps back and forth, you know, the typical conversations you have with your family members. And I didn't even realize I was getting to her. But she stomps her foot on the floor and she said, "Are you trying to make me an atheist?" And I thought, yeah, but I didn't want to say that, right? Because I thought, am I really, is that what I'm trying to do? That's what I want, but is that what I'm trying to do? And actually, no, I wasn't trying to. What I was trying to do at that moment, while I may want her to become an atheist, what I was trying to do at that moment is just explain to her my position. I just wanted her to understand it wasn't a phase I was going through like we've all heard, or that I was just angry at God or any one particular deity. I was just explaining, and whenever I said to her, "Mom, I'm not trying to make you an atheist at this moment. I just want you to understand where I'm coming from and why I don't believe." And as soon as I said that, she went, "Oh, okay." And the walls came down. She didn't feel so defensive. Because most of these believers, whenever they are talking to someone who disagrees with them, when they're talking with someone, there's a Methodist talking with a Catholic, they're trying to drag them into their church. The Baptist is trying to talk to the Methodist and go, "You're wrong, let me bring you into my church." So it's constant life shift and life change and change of behavior. And so they tend to think that that's what we're trying to do. That I want you to stop going to church and come to my atheist cult meeting. That's what they think. Respect the person and their ability to change their worldview and join us in the fight. Remember, that's why you're having the conversation to begin with. And it's important to understand the believer, and here's where we get to the group psychology piece of it. Some believers are victims of lifelong indoctrination and mental and verbal abuse. Many of you may be here today who came out of that, who have developed this sort of Stockholm syndrome for their captors. They've been beaten down, they've been abused, they've been talked down to, but somehow they've got this love and respect and protection for the people that did it to them, and it's phenomenal. Some of them are lifelong seekers of truth, and they're still looking and they do it. But either way, they've developed a safety net in their belief. They've attached to a social structure, which you're all aware of, and when that belief is shaken, they become both terrified and angry. And a lot of times, their anger will lead to your anger. And you start snapping back because they say things to you like, "One day you will bow your knee." Oh man, that's made me go off before, and I've had to learn from that. So think about how you would talk with other victims, other people who may have been suffering from something similar. Let's say a friend who's in an abusive relationship. If you knew a friend who's in an abusive relationship, and many of us do, would you call her an idiot? Would you call her stupid for continuing to go back to someone? You may feel that it's a bad decision, but how effective are you going to be in helping her see the truth if you ridicule her, you make fun of her, you call her names? She's going to run back to what she knows is safety, the one thing that does protect her that also hurts her. It's the same way with someone suffering from a drug addiction or alcohol abuse. How would you talk with that person? Would you help them out of their addiction? Would you help them change their behavior by calling them an idiot, hiding their stuff, and calling them stupid and saying they have no basis in it? There's no logical reason. You tell them what they think. You tell them what they should know. Tell them what their behaviors are. Who's going to respond positively to that? They're going to put up their walls, defend themselves, and fight with you and probably stop talking to you about that. I don't think that is progressive. I really don't. Please take a moment to read this. Understanding the Believer. Dr. David Eller from Atheism Advanced 2007. Within groups, negative attitudes toward other members are minimized or denied, resulting in narcissism toward the group and hostility toward outsiders. Such groups overlook the failings of their own. My group is better than your group. So when we screw up, or we have an individual that makes a mistake, that's okay, we can overlook that. But when your group screws up, that's because you're evil. So when an atheist makes a mistake, that's because he's an atheist. But when a Christian makes a mistake, it's because he tripped up, he's going to be better. That's where they get this mentality. 1921, Sigmund Freud noted that in order for a group to strengthen, the people must replace a piece of themselves with a piece of the group. Ego, pride, confidence, etc. Even removing religion from it for a moment. Think about being at a football game. 30 degrees outside, and there are guys lined up with chargers painted across their chests. You know, they're freezing. 30's probably warm, right? But still, the point is, their ego, their warmth, isn't as important as the group's overall ego, so they've replaced their own ego with the group's ego because it's important for that group to survive. So they replace a piece of themselves with a piece of the group. And that's why it's like, no, I've got to make that casserole Sunday. I've got to do that. That group is far more important than my own personal time schedule. So what are we doing when we're going after these people, telling them they need to let go of their belief, they need to let go of their religion? We're asking them to remove a piece of themselves. And that's huge. It's huge to understand what you're asking of the person that you're talking to. This is why I believe one of the first important steps is validation. And I don't mean placating to, okay, yeah, you're right, it's fine. Jesus was a great guy. Not talking about the historical Jesus issue or mythicism. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about simply validating that their religion is important to them. I understand. What's wrong with that? Validation doesn't mean you're validating their accuracy or even that their religion is important. It's you are simply validating their feelings and the power that religion holds in their lives. They just want to know that you understand where they're coming from. So before you begin poking holes, find common ground. Admit your own faults. Show them the human side of atheism. Be humble in learning, not arrogant in teaching. Tell the believer things like this. I understand that you feel attached. I understand the emotional connection you have to your religion. I can relate to the social aspect of going to church and these certain social needs that you develop. You understand the fear of being ostracized, that you've studied the religious doctrines if you have. And you don't have all the answers either, but you're not okay with assuming that a God will fill in the gaps. What you do by doing this is you make yourself a member of their group. I don't have to be the bad guy anymore. I'm not the one opposite you. I'm in your group. That's the group that cares about truth, reality, and humanity. Do you care about the truth? Yes, I do. That believer cares about the truth. They care about humanity. They care about reality. Then we're on the same team. We don't have to be look at each other as though we're in opposite groups or that we are enemies. Remind them of all the things that they're naturally skeptical of, because they are. A lot of Christians are skeptics. I know that sounds crazy, but they are. They are skeptical of things like cults. They'll look at a cult, look at something like Jim Jones or David Koresh and go, yeah, those guys are crazy. I don't know why they believe that way. They're skeptical of leprechauns. They're skeptical of magic. What's that other thing Christians are really skeptical of? I forget. It's not important. So encourage that skepticism and ask them why they don't approach Christianity with the same level of skepticism. Ask them questions like, do you think maybe it's because you were raised that way? If you were born in Iran, would you possibly be Muslim, do you think? But many will say, hey, I do approach it with skepticism. Well, there's a test for that. We can find out if you approach it with the same level of skepticism. I'm not going to get into a huge philosophical discussion. That's not my strong point as listeners of my radio show. No, but the fourth listener's here, I see. Top-down logic or deductive reasoning, basic understanding, it works in a closed domain of discourse, okay? You state a few premises, essentially starting with your answer, and then you fill in the questions based on those rules. A guy by the name of Blake did it recently on the show. He starts off with this whole argument, step one, if this, then this, then this, then that. Yeah, okay, it is logical, assuming that it is a closed domain of discourse. That's where I think we part. I don't think life or creation or space or the universe is a closed domain. This can work. Top-down logic works. Like, for example, in a traffic accident investigation. They know where the car is. They see how long the skid marks are. They see where the body is. They can deduct from that how fast the vehicle was going. There are ways, if this, then this, then this. There are things we know, therefore X. That's a closed domain, right? Origins of life are not a closed domain. So bottom-up logic or inductive reasoning is a much better way to approach the question of creation or the existence of a deity. This can be used in an open domain of discourse because you start with the question and you determine your answers along the way, eliminating impossibilities. Here are our questions, and as you go along, then you get to the answer. If you start with the answer is God, and I can't tell you how many Christians have said to me when I say things like, why is it so easy for you to believe that a dead person came back to life? Honestly, a lot of them will say things like, come on, if I believe that a God created the entire universe in 7 days, how's it a leap to believe a dead guy who came back to life? And I'm like, well, you're right, and that's the problem. That's my point. Why do you believe that way? So rather than saying, well, I already believe something outrageous, let's do the little test and say, now listen, are you treating this as a closed domain of discourse to where there are only a few possibilities? Or is it an open domain of discourse? And if it's open, we need to use bottom up because top down is going to fail and result in confirmation bias. Ask them if they're treating as open and closed. Ask them if they're being skeptical like they are with other claims. Are they actually asking questions, or are they starting with their answers? And more importantly, are they willing to improve their method? Because if they're willing to improve, then you have a starting point. You have something that they're willing to do. Also help believers understand atheists. We didn't decide to become atheists. We didn't say, you know what, I would really like to lose my job. It'd be really cool to get honked at and flipped off a lot. It'd be fun to never be able to be let over in traffic. It's awesome. That's why I got my Darwin fish, because I like the lane I'm in. Belief isn't a conscious choice. This right here, this one line could be a huge conversation for someone. Do you think belief is a choice? And then go through some questions with it. Do you actually think you can choose to believe something no matter how much you actually don't already believe it? Absolutely. It's a lot of believers. Sure, you can choose. No, hold on. I can choose to go through the motions. I can choose to shake the hands, visit the churches, bring the casserole, sing in the choir, or in my case, play the drums for the choir, all the while questioning everything that's going on. I could go through the motions, but do I really believe? If I'm shaking the hands, is that belief? Or is that behavior? Right? So, you explain to them that it's not actually conscious choice. If you say things like this, look, if you think belief is a choice, climb on top of your house, close your eyes. Believe that your house is 3 inches tall, and when you believe it, jump. You might not want to use that one because they'll sue you, because they might actually try it. I don't know. The point is, you can't force a belief if it doesn't make sense to you. While many atheists do want to see religion eventually go away, it doesn't mean we all want it to happen by force. Greta Christina points this out in her book, Why Your Atheists Are Angry. Most atheists do support your constitutional rights to keep your religion or to be theologically wrong, but we also support our own rights of being productive without it, and children's rights not to be harmed by its practices. Explain to them that your message is a message of love. It's a message of peace and equality and tolerance. It's not a message of anti-Christian. Remember these things? We have a lot of reasons to be angry. These are all very good things to be angry with that most Christians will agree with you are horrific things. I've got a couple of quotes that I want to share with you that I've found to be very, very effective with believers. The first one, even though your religion makes you feel good, we can't deny that the core of these atrocities lies in the basis of the same belief that gives you comfort. Like, oh, my religion makes me feel good. My belief comforts me for my dead loved one. It makes me feel good. Yeah, but it also does all of these things. Well, it's the people, it's the men doing those. I understand, but their basis is in the same belief that makes you feel good. And notice right here, I said, we can't deny. I try to avoid attacking the individual. You can't deny blank blank. Come on, we can't deny this, we can't deny that. It helps them understand you're on the same team. The other quote, I've researched your religion, if you have, and I've analyzed its historical statements because I care about the truth. Now will you join me in a skeptical analysis of your religious doctrine and show me that you care about the truth? Continuing to help believers understand atheists, in most cases, we're not against all the wonderful things you think the Bible stands for. We're against what you don't know it says. Now, if you're dealing with apologists or professional arguing Christians like John Christy is, this really wouldn't apply to him because he knows what the Bible says. But so many Christians, when they hear the word atheist, they think you're against loving your neighbor or you're against helping people. That's what they see, because that's all they connect with their religion. They see happiness and peace and loving and awesomeness. You go, atheist, how are you against love and helping the poor and healing people? How are you against that? I'm not. I just call it humanism. I do it without the superstition. I do it without the hate. I do it without the intolerance. Explain to them that it's possible to have that level of love and care for humanity and make a difference in the world without oppressing other populations. Ask them questions. When asking questions, remember the believers group psychology. Try to avoid sarcasm and ridicule, otherwise you're just putting yourself on the opposite side of the line and they may not listen. A strong negative opposition strengthens their group mindset. In essence, they want to feel persecuted and victimized by you because that's what they've been told to expect. Their preacher's been up there telling you, and if you dare to watch Fox News, you know what I'm talking about. They tell them what's happening, what the church is trying to do, what Obama's going to do, and come take your guns, and blah, blah, blah. It goes on and on and on. So when you attack them and you come at them very aggressively and insulting, you're falling into exactly what their preacher's been teaching. You're confirming their religion's truthfulness. As soon as you step to them and do something angry or negative or hateful, that's that scary atheism my preacher told me about. You don't want to help their preacher appear to be correct. Ask their opinion of disturbing Bible verses. A common sentence I like to say is, how do you reconcile this? Perfect example, I'll say, are you familiar with 1 Samuel 15:3, where God orders Saul to wipe out the Amalekites, and he specifically says to kill infants. He lists them, infants and nursing children. He says it, women, children, nursing infants. How do you reconcile that with a loving God? They'll try to come up with something. They might have an answer for you, but you've planted the seed. You've made them think about it. Matthew 10:34, Jesus coming to divide families. Jesus says, I did not come to bring peace. That shocks a lot of believers. They don't know that. Isaiah 45:7, that God created evil. A lot of people say, no. He created the propensity for evil. He created the possibility or potential for evil. That's not what your book says, though. The book says God created evil. How do you reconcile that? Numbers 22, the talking donkey, is just hilarious. Sorry. They may have an answer for you, but they will leave with doubts and motivation to research, and that's what we want. We don't want them walking away thinking that they avoided a mean, angry atheist. We want them walking away, you know what, I want to do research on this because I want to have an answer for him. Because the best thing they could do is read their Bible. Seriously. Ask questions about free will. If heaven, you better even start with this. You may say, does heaven have free will? 99% of the time they'll say yes, unless you get a Calvinist, which is really fun. But most of them will say yes, heaven has free will. Okay, well if heaven has free will, but no evil, then it is possible for evil to exist. Then it is possible for free will to exist without evil. So why do you think a God would create all of this evil and allow suffering if it wasn't necessary? What I mean by that is, a lot of times you'll say, well, you have 3-year-olds that get leukemia. Why would that happen? Every time they go to, God gave us free will, and we're in a fallen society, and we have free will. Okay, what about heaven? How is heaven? Is heaven amazing? Do you have free will in heaven? Can you do whatever you want in heaven? Well, yes. So there is free will in heaven. Is there evil in heaven? Well, of course not. Then why isn't this heaven? If it's possible for it to exist with free will, why couldn't the world have just been created that way to begin with? If I was God, would I have done it? How would you have done it if you were God? Would you have created this beautiful place just like heaven with free will and no evil? Of course they would have. Of course they would have. What bothers you about Islam? Show them comparisons in the Bible that they never knew were similar. They'll be shocked how much of Islam they push away. Say things like this: if I told you that my friend died and came back to life, would you believe me? Every time. No, I wouldn't believe that. Okay, so then I write it down and you'll believe it in 2,000 years? If I showed you video of it, would you believe it? No! You see illusions all the time that you know aren't real. So why do you believe something written down so long ago? Show the morality of unbelief. If your child grew up and then denied that you were his or her parent, would you lock them in the room and burn the house down? That sounds fair. Of course they wouldn't do that. If you could stop tornadoes, hurricanes, earthquakes, would you? Of course you would. Every time they say that. I say, I would, and I'm just an atheist. They giggle at that. But your God doesn't. And you believe He's the only one powerful enough to stop it. You see, so many atheists come at believers with facts and science. And then more facts, and then they pile science on top of facts, slide in an insult, maybe a curse word, back to science. Believers are very emotional. They're connected to their religion not because of fact and science and proof. They're connected to their religion because of emotion, so that's where we need to meet them to make a difference. And this does it. This shows them that even as a non-believer, you have morality. And then you say, look, you would stop it, I would stop it. I submit to you that you have a greater morality than the God you worship. How can they say they get their morality from a source that allows the things they would stop? Before I get to this one, I want to stop and say that you see a lot, and just today in Riverside, I had a live radio show, and I played my segment, Republicans Say the Darndest Things. And I played a couple of clips where some Republicans were basically saying that we're going to be held accountable by God for allowing homosexuality. We're going to be held accountable, we're going to be judged. And I was asking, I had Ryan Bell there from A Year Without God, and I was going, now wait a minute, why are they held accountable? He's like, well, you know, you're standing by, you're watching something happen, and you're not doing anything about it, and you're going to be held accountable. Like if you saw my lug nuts loose, and you don't say anything, and then I crash and die, someone can hold you accountable for that, for not speaking up. I go, that's exactly right. So if the believer can say, we're going to be held accountable for not preventing gay marriage, which, by the way, I said warning us is different from making legislation, Prop 8, but warning is different from making a law, but still, if God is going to hold you accountable for standing by and watching something happen, but not doing anything to solve it, why don't believers hold Him accountable for everything that happens horrible in the world while He stands there with indifference? Allows it to continue. Well, we live in a fallen world. Okay, it's a fallen world. I don't care if I lived in the worst fallen city on the planet. If I could help the child lying in the dirt, I would, and I'm just an atheist. What's wrong with your God? Remind them that these questions are so confusing because God is in the equation. It only begs more questions as to why or how He would design or allow such a thing to happen. But once we remove God from the equation, all of these answers make sense. Why are we stabbing each other and punching each other and stealing things? Because we're animals. We're evolving. We're still getting used to culture and society. Why are there tornadoes? There are very, very science-based explanations in meteorology for why we have tornadoes. Inserting God makes you go, wait, how could that happen? Why would a God allow that? Why would something so powerful not stop? Why this? Why that? How this? How that? But removing God, things suddenly become a lot more clear. And remind them, atheism can be a safe landing place, and it's very rewarding, especially in secular humanism. And as you explain your point, you open the conversation. Tell me why you disagree with me. Tell me why you disagree. Tell me why the God you worship is higher morality than you when you would stop these things, but He doesn't. Tell me why I'm wrong. All questions will be answered in the end. That means I need to think about that. Be respectfully assertive. Don't mistake my nice guy approach or diplomatic approach, or David Smalley approach, for being a pushover, because I'm not. I will still hold people accountable for their words. And I encourage you to do the same thing. Ask them for demonstrable evidence when they say they know things. Ask them, how do you know what you claim to know? Challenge their responses for accuracy. Ask why they believe that answer to be true. Ask why they believe those early writings. That's one of my biggest things. Look, I don't think you have faith in Jesus as much as I think you have faith in the person that wrote those things down about Jesus. Almost everything we trace back, or a lot of what we trace back, goes back to Paul, who so many people want to discount. Are you believing in Jesus? Or are you just really trusting the guy that first wrote this stuff? Why do you believe the early writings? Voice your concerns with sincerity instead of ridicule, and always remain open to disagreement, so they will. When they tell you they think you're wrong, if you fly off the handle, they're going to do the same thing, and that's how things escalate. So always be sure to display the behavior you desire. One common question or comment I get from a lot of atheist listeners to my radio show, they'll say things like, wow, your patience with believers. I can't believe how patient you are with believers. But have you ever noticed that they hardly ever get out of hand? They hardly ever get angry? I'm displaying the behavior that I want to receive. So I'm okay with them disagreeing with me. I'm okay with them telling me that I'm wrong. And I don't get angry about that. If I got angry and flipped over a table when they said that Darwin confessed he was wrong on his deathbed, they're going to do the same thing when I say, why do you believe what Paul wrote down? And then we're just flipping over tables and it makes a mess. Listen. That's what you want them to do, right? You want them to listen to you. So listen. Be open to criticism. Remain calm but assertive. Present non-threatening arguments. I know what you're thinking. Every argument for atheism is threatening to believers. It can be, but ask them to separate themselves from their ideology. Explain to them what I said. Look, I've separated it. My ideas aren't me. Your ideas aren't you. They don't make up who you are. They're your ideas, and your ideas can change. Keep your questions and answers short. This is difficult, I know, but if you listen to my show, you'll hear me. I hardly ever just rant on and on and on and on and on and give them 15 things, because it'll be overwhelming. That they feel like, God, this is so much to respond to. I can't really get to this. But if it's a direct question, why do you think God did not save J.C. Dugard and left her in the tent for, 18 years? Why did God do that? Do you think she prayed? Short and to the point. Why would God allow that? How do you reconcile this? I think it makes more sense because of this. Very, very short. It's always going to be a lot more effective. If you must interrupt, which a lot of times we have to, be polite with your interruption. Use interruption words. Things like, I understand, but, short statement. I see where you're going with that, but what I meant is blank. Instead of, no, shut up. It's not going to work nearly as well as, no, I understand. However, be polite with your interruptions. Tell them the excitement of unbelief. So many people will say that we have nothing to live for. We're applying this made-up purpose for our lives. Unbelief is extremely exciting. Explain the joy of humanism and what it feels like to help somebody. That's not a made-up feeling. That is a real feeling, and it matters now because we're here now, we feel now, we interact with each other now, and life matters. Things are important. Show the sexiness of being stardust. I said this today on the show. Something about I'm sexy stardust, and that's amazing. And now I think they're already making t-shirts. In Riverside, I'm sexy stardust. I love that. I'm gonna have to buy one. For my wife. For my wife. Talk about this being the one chance we have to change the world. That's amazing. That's exciting to me. I don't know if you guys are aware, back episode 40 of Dogma Debate, I had my daughter Talissa on the show, and she was telling me she's afraid of death. I don't want to die. Daddy, I don't want to die. So we had a talk, and that conversation happens to be on the show. And I explained to her, sweetie, when we're at a holiday party with the family, and we start packing up and getting ready to go, and all the kids in the family are in the kitchen dancing in their socks. Everybody's playing, but you're afraid to. You're standing off to the side, and you're a little embarrassed. You're a good dancer. You know you can dance. Why don't you go out there? I'm nervous. I'm scared. I don't want to look silly. Okay. And then I said, look, we're loading the car, sweetheart. We've got to go. We're leaving soon. I understand. If you don't dance now, you're not going to get a chance to dance. We got to go. I'm loading the truck. You still don't dance, do you? No, Daddy. I'm embarrassed. And then I say, what happens when the truck's loaded, it's started, my door's open, we've hugged everybody goodbye, and I look at you and I say, you have 30 seconds to dance, and we're leaving. What do? Daddy, I dance. Damn right you dance, sweetheart. Because you have 30 seconds to dance, and this is it. And I said, this life is your 30 seconds to dance, and it is exciting, and you get to do whatever the hell you want with it, and touch lives, and be positive, and make the world better than you've encountered it. And she was not afraid of death, but excited about life. And that's what we need to tell believers. We are excited about life. Show them how we create our own purpose without marching orders from an invisible deity. And most importantly, tell them it's okay. It's okay. I live perfectly fine without religion. It's okay to have doubts. I know it's terrifying. I know it's scary. I've been through it, but it's okay. Engage everyone. Come out and be proud. This one can be a little offensive. If you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. Understand that I mean if you can't come out safely, as Dan was saying, don't come out. I understand. But you could create a profile on Facebook under a different name, and you could make a difference. You could touch someone out there. Don't just sit by and let it happen. Reply all to those emails. No, this doesn't mean reply to all those emails. You know what I mean? You get the email, 15 of your family members and coworkers, and da-da-da-da-da. My aunt sent out an email one time saying, we should make a law in this country that you cannot sing our national anthem in any language other than English. And it had a street sign called Mex America. I thought, that sounds delicious. And I hit reply, and then I went, wait a minute. If she can blast this nonsense to everyone, let me reply all to this email. So I replied all. And I didn't argue with her about theology. I didn't argue with her about racism or immigration. I simply said, you know, Jesus spoke Aramaic. So she replies all and says, since when did you become an expert on Jesus? And so I replied all and said, since I became an atheist. And she didn't reply again. But everybody saw the interchange and they at least thought about it. And you know what? Wait a minute. We do have a beautiful message to provide with our freedom. Why make that available to only people who speak English? We want the world to know our story. Be respectful, set a good example. Talk to that sidewalk preacher. At the American Atheist Convention in Salt Lake City, I was getting ready to do a live show and we had some protesters outside. We'd been warned to stay away from them. The police have already been called a couple of times. These people had this huge bullhorn thing or this ram horn thing that they were. When I got ready to do my show, I went down and I got one and I brought them into the convention. And I talked with them. I don't want to shy away from the conversations. Talk to that sidewalk preacher. By the way, that's episode 119 if you're curious. Join the local groups, which you have probably successfully done tonight. Become a voting bloc. Have an identity, become a people, and finally, please, never pass up a chance to have a conversation, because the next mind you change could change thousands. Thank you very much. All right, I'm going to bring up now a good friend of mine. I hope you guys have questions for us. I'm going to talk a little bit about this film. The movie is called My Week in Atheism, and John Christy was a listener of the radio show. He liked the show. He liked the approach that we take with believers, the fair chance we give them to present their faith. And he was a listener and said, look, I'm a filmmaker out in California. He's actually from Northern California. And he said, I want to film our interactions. I want to come out there. I want to spend some time with you. And I was like, hey, if you're coming out, I want to take you to the American Atheist Convention. I want to take you to Skepticon. I want to show you the human side of atheism. He came, he brought the cameras. Our friendship actually strengthened because of it. And I say in the film, I know he's socially my enemy, but I have faith in him. That's the inside joke, trust me. I believe in him. I see the kindness in his heart, how sweet the man is, what a good father he is, what a good husband he is, but he's just so damn theologically wrong. He's just so wrong. And when I talk to him, I truly see it as an intervention. I do. But when we decided to do the film, I was worried. I didn't want this to be another Ray Comfort thing. I was afraid of that. And the film came out extremely fair to the atheist side. I'm a co-producer on the film. I'm very proud of it. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome John Christy. So do we have a mic that someone can pass around for questions? You guys just want to raise your hands, or you got a mic? Oh, he's got a mic back there. So you guys just raise your hands and he'll come around to you. And I'll go ahead and just let John sort of introduce the film before the questions get started. John, go ahead.
Thank you. So the first thing, I had a big nose, and I'm sure if it's doing a profile, it's going to be horrible, so...
Take pictures, Facebook.
Here you go. Excuse me. First thing I want to say, it's kind of ironic and sad at the same time that last night and tonight at two atheists meetings, I've been treated very, very nicely. In fact, Nate gave me coffee and a warm jacket. And Thursday night, when we went to a Christian venue, I was given the right foot of fellowship, which basically they kicked us out. So thank you very much for showing up Christianity and being much more cordial than my own brethren have been. So I appreciate that. It's the truth. I'm sorry.
Just real quick, can I just tell them? I just want to tell them the story. We were kicked out of a church in Compton. We went there to show the film. We were going to show My Week in Atheism, and the pastor was okay with it. The pastor let the crew in, let Caesar in, and they started setting up. John was hooking up to a projector and getting everything set up, and these other men came in and just said, "You have no business here, what are you doing?" and forcefully removed them, and within seconds they were outside on the sidewalk in Compton with all their stuff going, "What do we do?" And they did what any self-respecting people would do, they took selfies.
They were verbally forceful. They didn't, not physically, they didn't touch us.
Right. No, but it was funny, as we were driving to the event, I received a picture of just Caesar and John outside with all their stuff. And then a few minutes later, I see Caesar, John, and 3 other people. Hey, we're still out here. It was truly funny. And then I got there and I was like, which door did you get kicked out of? And they said that one. So I went in that door, and I was told to wait 5 minutes. And then they came out, invited us in, and ultimately said, look, the pastor wanted to do this, but some people in the church didn't think it was a good idea, so I'm sorry we're not going to be able to have it happening. And so I asked John, I was like, how do you feel being treated like an atheist? And he just says, look, it's like, it happens within denominations of Christianity. There's a lot of intolerance. And would you call it that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yes, but it's fear. It's driven by fear. And that's why, that's exactly why we did the movie. I brought one of these up. We're selling them DVD and Blu-ray. It's a feature-length film, documentary. That's the reason why I wanted to do it, is because I recognize, I see it within Christianity. I've grown up, and over my lifetime, I've been a member of different denominations, or at least very interactive with different denominations, many of them. And I see the prejudices, I see the fear, I see the intolerance, I see, all the things that I say humans are humans, That's why I wanted to do My Week in Atheism, because I'm trying to break through that. It's my way of trying to not only reach across the aisle, but to try to get others to reach across the aisle on both sides. And so last night, I had said, and I mean this truthfully, there's several different reasons I did the movie, but for the atheists, one of the main reasons was for you guys, from the standpoint of I wanted you to be able to tell your story. Now, I think we've used a lot of the, maybe not the biggest names in atheism, like the Richard Dawkins and the Lawrence Krauses, but I think some of the most active, some of the guys that are out there on the grassroots level, at all the conventions, not the superstars, but the stars, nonetheless, of atheism. And that was because of David getting them all together to be a part of the film. And so I wanted atheists to be able to say what atheism is, not what Christians perceive atheism is. And I think that the film does that very fairly. In fact, that's the compliment I get from a lot of atheists is, wow,
we do have the opportunity, if you can provide the any DVD, or actually not the DVD, but I guess we could watch it online or something. We could show them the preview if you wanted.
Oh,
the trailer. We could just connect his laptop to the projector if you wanted. Is that fine? Sure. All right, cool.
Yeah.
HDMI. Okay.
Braden has my keys and stuff. If you can get my bag.
Okay.
Okay, cool. It's in the trunk.
So just Caesar's working on that. Cool. So with that in mind, I mean, this guy spent a week. He called it a week. It was actually a year in atheism of filming and traveling around. Since we don't have any questions yet, what's stuck with you the most?
Of the film?
Yeah. No, just your travels with atheists for a year. I mean, I know you had always talked with atheists, you'd always blogged, you'd always been kind of debating online, but what stuck with you when you really got to know atheists?
It's hard because there's so many things. I mean, instantly, and I don't know if this is because of what I said earlier, but the first thing that just came to my mind was the lack of hostility, the friendliness. And to be honest, there's a part of me that I was thinking, is this because these people know there's a camera rolling? They don't want me to get that footage, but I honestly feel like it was genuine. I feel like atheism is rooted in, I want to say maybe inquisition. I want to say inquisitive nature. It's you want answers. You want to know. You want them from natural means.
Empirical evidence. We've talked about that a lot. You kept saying
talking more about the curiosity aspect of it. And with that, I think comes an openness to what is it that you think? I was being asked a lot of questions from atheists of why do you believe this? Why do you believe that? Why do you think this? And that's one of the things I think that stuck out the most to me, rather than feeling like they were going to set me straight. I think the attitude was more like inquisitive. It was more like that, I guess. I'm probably, every time you ask me that question, I'll say something different, but there were a lot of things that stuck out.
David, John, we have a question back here.
Okay.
John, there are a lot of common arguments from theists that we've all heard before. For instance, the evolution of the eye. How do you explain it? Therefore, God must exist. Why do you eat babies? So on and so forth. Are there any arguments that you used, admittedly, that you thought were maybe convincing or serious, that since your travels and experience throughout the atheist community, that you do not use anymore? That you cringe that maybe you have used that before?
Arguments.
Any arguments that you've abandoned?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. To give you the honest answer to that question, going through this process for me has solidified more the standard traditional Christian arguments that are out there. I've learned not only more about the Christian arguments, but what you guys think of them. And I gotta be honest, from that standpoint, that's come stronger. I'm trying to think what I have changed though, because I want to give you something in that direction. And I think the biggest thing that's opened my eyes as far as an argument standpoint, something that maybe a year and a half ago I would have said, would have been along the lines of this being a Christian nation, church, and state. Now, I've always known that, the founding fathers, some were deistic, most were theistic, most were based in the Christian religion, but they really purposefully created a constitution that did not lean toward Christianity. They created a constitution that was fair and balanced for all religions and non-religion. But, you know, I mean, child of the 80s, Reagan administration, you know, Christianity was one of the biggest things pushing, and we've seen the effects of that. And I disagree with a lot of that. You know, and I didn't know how much I disagreed with it until I went to Texas.
Thank you. We've got another question.
Hi, David, John. Following up on the baby eating statement, but a little bit of a preface. Christopher Hitchens said that religion is our first and worst chance for opportunity to do cosmology, ethics, and medicine and that. So, what about the evolution of religion? Like they were sacrificing humans to the sun over here. Human sacrifices, and Christianity came and said, "Don't do that." Could it be a mitigating force? And if we accept, which I would, we're a bunch of hairless monkeys in a godless world. You have people like John Wayne Gacy, homosexual who killed children. People like Jeffrey Dahmer, who killed and ate people. And Jeffrey Dahmer, at the very least, became Christian afterwards and regretted. Is it enough in this godless world of hairless monkeys to say, "Oh, go your own way, it'll work itself out"? Or can religion be a mitigating effect, even if we were to recognize its natural progression, as Daniel Dennett said, the evolutionary progression of religion?
You're asking me if religion can be effective as a positive mitigation to negative behavior?
Yes.
Absolutely. It can be. I don't think it's necessary, though. And I think the important thing to distinguish is to help people come out of that and mitigate that behavior without the oppression that follows with religion. But for those that need it, it can absolutely be effective, sure.
Can I say one quick thing to that?
Sure.
That's such an interesting question to me, because it's one of the striking differences between David and I. And I've said this very often, I don't need Jesus for the love your neighbor part. I don't need Jesus to be a better person. I can get that from the Bhagavad Gita. I can get that from the Upanishads. I can get that from humanism. I can get that from so many things. And that's one of the things that really is the hardest thing for me to argue against, is that humanism factor, because I say in the movie, you know, can atheists be very moral? Absolutely. So what do I do with that? If Christianity is all about behavior and being good, what do I do when I find someone who completely rejects my God, my Jesus Christ, and yet is a wonderful person, an excellent father, a very good human being? What do I do with that? That's not what Christianity is about. It's about a salvation of our soul. And I won't go, I'm supposed to keep my answers short, but that's one of the key points that I always try to get it back to, is it's not about the good and the bad behavior, it's about the salvation of soul. I'm sorry.
Yeah, they're passing the mic around.
You'll be next.
This question's mostly for John, but David, I'd like you to answer the opposite of it. What would make you completely abandon your faith and be
Christianity specifically?
Just not even Christianity and becoming a
Any
theist,
God.
just realizing that there's no God. And David, after he answers that, what would drive you back to religion?
Okay, if we're dealing at the God level, just a supernatural, and I have no idea. That is such a, I am so convinced of that on a basis. I mean, I'm convinced of Jesus Christ, but if we go even to the deistic level, I don't think I could ever be an atheist. And I say this in the film, it's a point with R and Raw that we talk about. I know how I could not be a Christian, and that is if I did no longer believe that Jesus Christ was resurrected. I would not be a Christian. But a deist, I would still be, and I don't see how I could possibly ever not be a deist, believing in a God.
For me, it would be the empirical evidence. I think that would convince most of us. You know, if some specific event happened to just me, I think what Lawrence Krauss says something about the stars being all aligned. I would still assume it was an illusion. I would assume that I was deluded. I would assume a lot of things. It would take I can't even, you know,
You're having just as hard a time as I did.
well, look, when I was baptized, and this part is in my book, this is the sentence that changed it for me, which I'm glad you asked this because it really hit, it changed my life. I just become baptized, and the wording in the book is, I think the pastor saw the doubt in my face because I was just thinking, what did I just agree to? What did I just say I was going to be a part of? I didn't feel worthy to be Christian. I didn't feel worthy to wear the cross I felt I had the holy water still dripping off of me and I wasn't worthy yet. I didn't know what it meant to be a Christian. I didn't know anything about the faith. Yet I was baptized, and so I'm standing there and other people are being baptized because we were Baptists and it was kind of a ceremonial thing. And this pastor comes to me and he leans down, the guy that actually dipped me in the water, and he said, you know, son, you can't just say you believe. You have to know it to be true in your heart. And I know very few things, very few absolutes that I'm not willing to change my mind on. So I just, I'm open, I'm skeptical. It would have to be absolute empirical evidence to change my mind, not disproving some scientific method or disproving evolution or all of these one-off arguments. No, that wouldn't do it. It would have to be something that would make me know it. Something demonstrable.
Hi. I just have a question. At the beginning, I thought I heard something about that you went from kind of one denomination to the next.
Oh, you're speaking to me?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Sorry. I could see I had a head in the way. Kind of one denomination to the next. Could you tell me what exactly were you looking for? I mean, aren't they? I just thought,
Yeah.
religion was kind of, God and then the rest of it, but I thought they were kind of the same. But
yeah, I grew up Roman Catholic and Greek Orthodox. My father's Greek, my mother's Italian, so we kind of split both in that. And if you know the differences between them, you'll understand. If not, they're just different. When I was 12, why are they different? Doctrinal beliefs, the way they see redemption, how we approach God, how we pray. It's ritual, it's religion. They're different in the way that they practice religion and in their beliefs of things. So basically, try to make it quick. I've been through charismatic religion, Pentecostal. My first Bible college I went to was charismatic. My bachelor's is through Baptist University. Graduate work I'm beginning is through Reformed denomination. I now go to an Evangelical Covenant Church. I've been all over the map. Why I've been all over the map is because denominations really don't matter to me. I'm not the type that says, if you do not believe in predestination, I will not worship with you. I'm not that way. There's very few things that I'm firm on. That God is a Trinity, that Jesus Christ is God, that the Scripture is the authoritative word. Certain. On one hand, I could probably count them. Those are things that I would say I couldn't fellowship with someone. I couldn't consider you a Christian if you denied Jesus Christ as God. Because by definition, you're not. So I've been all around because I'm not dedicated to one denomination. It's not that important to me.
Let me just ask. I think more clearly, like, if I may clarify and tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm thinking what she means is, was there ever been a time where you left a church for a specific reason to say, I need to get out of this denomination because they X. I want to go look for something.
Yes.
Like, for example, like Ryan Bell did. Ryan Bell was trying to find a church that was more liberal, more tolerant, more accepting of other people, and he went from conservative all the way down to super liberal, and then eventually said, I can't be a pastor.
Not so much leaving a denomination, but I did leave a church. And that stopped my going to church for about a decade.
Why did you leave the church?
And the main reason why was because of the direction they were going with prosperity, health and wealth. And it was all preaching about money and giving to get. And really, there was an Easter service where the place was packed out because it was Easter. And the pastor took the opportunity to guilt trip everybody into their lack of giving. And I said, I can't be a part of this. I never thought that they were not saved, that they were not Christian. I just no longer could sit under that ministry that had such a focus on money. It just was too much for me. So I left for that reason. But I never blamed the denomination for that, Does that?
Well,
not answer.
Are you still
Sorry, we don't have the mic on your phone.
No, I mean, I'm not searching as far as for a denomination. Like I said, I go to an evangelical covenant church, which is just a part of the evangelical system. But if my family and I moved, I'd look for a local church that I felt comfortable with. And if that was Lutheran, if that was, Methodist, Baptist, non-denominational, I'd be fine with it. I'm really not a denominational person, so I don't care.
Yeah, really quick question for both of you. I'm not terribly interested in persuading believers to share my views, because I think religion is an inescapable part of our society. I think it's always going to be here. As long as people are free to agree to disagree, I'm fine with that. What matters more to me is changing how atheism is perceived, because I feel there's still a perception in our society very much that atheists are evil, are immoral. Again, this is from close members of my family, in fact. So I'm curious, what do you feel is the best way to go about changing that? Sometimes I feel that even arguing about religion is counterproductive, because it leaves people with the impression that atheists want to take away their faith, which, again, doesn't particularly matter to me. So what do you feel is the best way to go about changing the way atheism is perceived today?
Do you have something you want to say?
So is the question for me or for John?
In all honesty, I'm joking, but I'm serious. I think this is a great starting point. I think this is a great starting point, and from atheists, Amazon, if you look at the reviews, I think one of the people says every atheist needs to buy this movie and give it to their Christian family or friends. I think it's a great starting point, because I think it shows that, you're not eating babies and you're not horrible or whatever people. The only other answer to that I can give is conversation. The more you talk to people, don't argue. There's one, I'm Italian, I get passionate. David and I obviously get passionate if you've heard us. But there's a difference, not degrading someone, not discrediting their belief, not going after them. Conversation, I don't know of any other way to do it, because it just takes time. That's I think one of the hardest things is it takes time. There's no quick, in one night it can be done.
Coming out to everybody, because believers meet you all the time. They see you, they know who you are, they have no idea that you're an atheist. So if the only person they've ever seen is the angry atheist on YouTube and Dave Silverman talking to Bill O'Reilly, that's what they think atheism is. They have no idea that it's a really nice guy that doesn't mind that they keep their religion. So coming out, letting people know that you're a non-believer, and going on about your day as peacefully and lovingly as you always do, I think for timing considerations, that's the first and most important thing. Thank you.
This question is for John. What do you think your belief in the real existence of a deity has added to your life? How has it enhanced your life?
First word that comes to mind is understanding. Things make sense. I'm going to quote C.S. Lewis, who I know all of you love. But he speaks specifically of Christianity, so I'm going to use that because I am Christian. But I believe in Christ as I believe in the sun. I see in Christ as I see the sun rising. Not by it, not because I see. I'm sorry, I'm really not.
You suck, man.
I believe in Christ as I believe in the sun. Not because I see it, but because by it I see everything else. And I really hack that, but that's the point that Lewis is making, is that it explains everything to me. The universe makes sense. I remove God from that picture. Specifically, I would even go as far as say I remove Christ from that picture, and nothing makes sense anymore.
I think it's a complete other way around. Just like I did in my talk, I think things make sense scientifically, and where they don't make sense, we say we still need to search for those answers, not fill in the gaps with a God. And so things can make sense, and we can go, oh, we've got a couple of gaps here, we've got this gap, I don't know what to do about this. When you insert God, things get very confusing. Who are the chosen people? Whose land is it? What should Israel be? Why is babies dying? Why this? Why that? It gets way more confusing, especially if Psalms, I believe 107 is right. God will keep us from all harm. No, He doesn't. So things get very confusing when we insert God. When we remove Him, things are much easier to understand, I think.
Not at all. I don't know if I should. Does anybody have a question? Can I respond to that? As you were talking, the way I'm thinking is, if I look at a car and I see all the mechanical parts and I turn on the radio and I hear the music and I see how everything works, it makes complete sense to me that there's an engineer. Once I understand there's an engineer behind that, the whole structure of the vehicle makes sense to me.
Exactly.
If I remove the engineer from the picture and just leave it out there to I don't know, then I have a lot of questions of things.
Right, and if the car came off the assembly line with square wheels, the doors on backwards, and it was going to probably rot itself to pieces 45 minutes after it left, and it could not survive in the environment it was built for without catching some sort of cancer, I would be like, who the hell designed this piece of crap?
Let me that's fine. Let me point out the error in that argument. We do have cars that have round wheels, not square. They function perfectly, yet they do degrade. They do need fuel. This makes complete sense. What you're describing is not even a real car. You have to describe something that's not real in order to make your point.
It was an analogy.
I understand, but that's the problem. Your analogies are always so distorted. When you use the analogy about the house, and God I wouldn't put my child in a house, light it on fire, and then tell him, come out here, or whatever you say, or burn. What you don't understand, what you're removing as an atheist is your own responsibility. God builds the house. Within the house, there's electricity, there's wires, there's danger, there's curtains, there's candles, there's a stove. We are supposed to use things properly. If I walk in there and let me finish. If I walk in there and light the curtains on fire instead of lighting the candles, and the house begins to burn down, why would I blame God on that? That's my responsibility.
Okay.
He built it. So if you go home tonight and you light your carpet on fire, I want you to file your insurance claim. No, actually, I want you to file a lawsuit against the construction company that built your house. That makes no sense.
That's not the same thing.
That's your.
Let's just go ahead and get to the next question. Let's get the next, because this could go all night with this nonsense.
I had one question.
Now
I've got like 5 questions. I'm just kidding. I'm going to stick to my first question, though. I did think that it was interesting how you said that you see the sunrise and that's how you know it's God. And it's interesting how one of the Roman emperors thought the same thing, and that's why he invented Sol Invictus. And kind of Apollo came out of that, and the world's first frescoes of Jesus is him of, the gold thing, and he's on the chariot, he's Apollo. So going back to that, that's true.
Go on.
Going back to that, I'm kind of a history nerd myself. I just graduated with a history degree, and one of the things that really kind of makes me interested is going back to what David said about the having faith in who wrote the Bible. That's the reason you believe that this character that's written in this book, very ancient book, existed, resurrected, the whole 9 yards. So why would you believe that writing and not believe the writing that when Julius Caesar died, he became a deity? So what's the difference? Why would you believe in something that Paul wrote, but Julius Caesar is not a god?
The quick answer to that would be because for the last 2,000 years, the historicity of the stories of Jesus and Paul have been challenged and refuted repeatedly from the 1st century to now. It's held up to the test of time. Without going into the evidence for why, that's the quickest answer I can give you. Yet, no one believes the Julius Caesar stories because they've been proven to be false. No one also believes the Augustus. Oh, right, but no one believes that he ascended. No one believes Augustus was the son of Apollo. No one believes these other things because they've been refuted. For 2,000 years, we've been trying to refute the historicity of the Bible, and we keep failing. So that's the quickest answer.
I disagree. I think it has been refuted. I think you disagree on the facts that were brought up. Was the other question?
Then you could seriously change the academic world if that's the truth. Because
Reed nailed it.
Go ahead, please.
Okay, so I have a question for both John and David. It's kind of 2 different sides of the same coin. Is there a moment or experience in your life, John, that you could point to that caused you to believe? And then likewise, David, a moment or experience in your life that caused you to realize your unbelief?
I went through 2 stages of Christianity. My first stage was belief based on total experiential belief. As I said, I was 12 years old, I was born again. That's when I really consider myself become religious. Before that, it was going through the motions of things. Anyway, make a long story short. So for my life, I was going on experiences. I was going on what I felt, what God was doing inside of me. And when I left that church that I talked about before, I left the church. Like, I didn't go to church for 10 years, and I went on a journey. I never stopped believing in God. I never stopped being a Christian, I would say. I always call myself a Christian. But I went on an intellectual journey. And I went into the historicity. I went into, how do I know any of this is true? And I'll end it real quick with this. There was a point, and I can't say exactly when it was, but there was a point in my studying and in reading so much ancient literature and comparing the Bible to other ancient literature and to just really digging into it that I went, wow, these people really existed, they really wrote these words down, and they really believed it. And from that basis, I became so much more certain of my faith than I ever did with the experiences that I had. That's what I'd say.
I read the Bible. Seriously, the baptism jump-started my desire to take it seriously. When I was baptized, I felt, again, I felt unworthy to be called a Christian. I was like, God, I'm in this group, I'm this representative now, and I don't know what my job is. I don't know, how do I know that this little group in this small town in Texas, we're the ones that have it right and everyone else is wrong? How do I know? And when I was baptized and I felt like I couldn't have an answer for people, and I didn't really know what it meant, I was like, I better take this seriously. I want to convert the world. I want to tell everybody the good news. I want to share with everyone what I'm now a part of. So I don't want to go looking like an idiot here. Let me go read this. Because when that pastor said, you can't just say you believe, you have to know it to be true, that rang so true to me that I knew I didn't know anything to be true. I didn't know it. I just been dunked in the water because, my friends were doing it, and that's, what the people from school were doing and the people from church. And I took it seriously and I started reading. And from Genesis, I was like 3 mornings and an evening without a sun. And then the testing of Abraham, where he almost kills his son Isaac to prove to God that he loves him when God is supposed to know all. Just right off the bat, as a teenager, I'm reading this stuff going, no, that doesn't make sense to me. So I could have faked it, I could have pretended. It was a 14-year journey for me, or 13-year journey for me, to finally say, halfway through, I think I said I'm not a Christian, but I didn't use the A word until I was probably in my early 20s, 19 to 20. So it was a long process, not an individual incident.
We have 3 more questions that we're going to try to get through as quick as possible so we can get out of here. But don't worry if you guys want to hash some more things out. We're going to do a tug of war with John Christy later. Okay? We'll figure out who's
I'll be in the middle, I'm sure.
Okay, so I have a question about miracles and where each of you lie on the idea of miracles. Personally, in my family, nobody studies too much the Bible, reads about history, but they have this idea that miracles happen in their lives. And
are they Catholic?
No, they were, but they're kind of one of those I'm my own type of Christian, and they're wrong, and all those Christians are wrong.
Okay.
But I have my version of Christianity, and I have my miracles, and that's my evidence. And I have a difficult time with that, so I'm curious, John, where you lie on miracles personally, and in terms of the range of Christian beliefs, how that compares, and finally how you, David, deal with miracles during the debate process.
So you're not asking if I believe in miracles, you're asking what do I think about the commonality of miracles and people and what you're saying?
I am asking you personally what you believe about miracles, right? Whether they're valid and whether you've had to experience them yourself and you believe that they're good evidence of God, and then how that relates to Christianity in terms of the range of Christian denominations.
the only miracle I've experienced in my life is my salvation. I know that sounds, no, but I'm serious about that. You know, that's a miracle. I'm a new creature in Christ, and that's a miracle in and of itself. That's the only miracle I know of in my lifetime. And I've been to healing services. I've seen, you know, legs grow out. I've seen.
Do you believe that stuff? The healing?
No. Yeah, I don't want to say they're all liars and charlatans or whatever, but you know, I look at it the way you guys would look at it. You know, okay, so you're cured of cancer. Where's the documentation of it? Now, I do happen to know a lady that goes to my church that she, before I went there, apparently was cured of cancer, but I don't know the story enough to know whether it's legitimate or not. But I actually bought a book by Greg Keener, 2-volume book about miracles, and he tries to document a lot of these, and I want to read it to do that, because I question a lot of that. I think in short, miracles are miracles by definition, so they don't happen that often. I don't know what that often would be. Otherwise they'd be called commonalities, you know, and I think Christians are very guilty of everything's a miracle. You know, I got that parking space, it was a miracle. You know, I got this, it was a miracle. And to me, you know, that's putting the cart before the horse. Again, the greatest miracle we can have is salvation, and I have that. So I have that miracle. Other than that, I don't know of any miracles legitimate that I've tested. You could say that's a miracle.
I look at, because I know things do happen where they say, for example, with cancer, they'll say this person was gone, they stopped treating the cancer, doctor said there was nothing that they could do, they literally gave the person a month to live, and then it was gone. You have no idea. And the people that prayed during that time will say it was because of the prayer. I obviously don't think it was because of the prayer. But I don't know of a situation, like he said, where I've tested it personally, and it happened. But assuming that what they tell me is true, and if the doctors really did stop it and this really did happen, I would look at it with awe and wonder like I look at many things in life and say, I don't know. I don't know, and it's okay to say I don't know. It doesn't mean we have to revert back to mythicism. It's an opportunity to say, wow, whatever made this cancer go away in this person, that needs to be a case study. We need to find out what happened so that we can induce that in other people. How did that happen? How can we replicate those results? To me, it's an opportunity to study and make progress. So I don't call BS on it. I just say, look, if it happened, let's document it and move forward so that we can replicate it on our own.
Okay, I just had a quick question coming back. I have a question for you, John. So when it comes to climate change and stuff like that to the news and science behind it, why is there such a distrust for science in the religious community at large?
I think, and I don't know if this is true or not, but in my understanding of Christian culture, I think a lot of it does have to do with the joining of the religious right to the conservative party mostly through the 80s. I'm not trying to pick on Reagan, but through that administration, Pat Robertson and everything, that it became very strong during that administration. And so I think the conservative Christian right just tends to go with whatever the conservative right seems to say. There are things where climate change is one of those things where there's some, Al Gore said by 2013 the Antarctic would be gone, and now they're saying that there's record ice there. And I don't know the details behind it, and I don't know, but all I'm saying is there is stuff that makes me go, I don't know, So I guess the answer is that, the reason why I think it's so strong in the religious communities is because of a lot of what happened of joining religion, Christianity with the conservative right over the last 30, 40 years would be my answer.
He's got the mic.
Got the mic behind you.
All right, I got a question for John. So David had mentioned that belief is not a choice, and I agree with that. Like, if I were to ever believe something, it would have to be from some chain of reasoning that my brain identifies as that's logical, and then I'm just compelled to believe it. And knowledge, I also would say I can never have absolute knowledge. There's maybe a couple of fundamental philosophical things we could be absolutely certain of, but most things, it's a weighing scale. So some things I'm very certain of some things. I'm just saying, well, this is more likely the case. So my question for you is that if I ever did personally come to the knowledge that the Christian God existed, after I have that knowledge, what do I do with that? Would worship and adoration be the right thing to do, the correct thing to do? Once I already know that that God exists, would worshiping and adoring the Christian God be the correct thing to do? And if so, why?
I guess the part of it that throws me is asking if it's the correct thing to do. The way that I see that is if you came to the knowledge of God, by definition of what God is, you would do exactly what Peter and Paul did, which is fall before him and say, my God, I mean, it's absolute adoration and declaration of him being God. I mean, we're talking about God here. Just suspend your disbelief for a moment. Just think by the definition of what God is. If you came into the knowledge that that was real, you would fall on your face before him and complete adoration, awe. That's what awe is. I mean,
I disagree. If I came to the knowledge that God was real, I would say, where the hell have you been? I would say you have a lot to be accountable for. I would be the worst Christian ever. I would be angry. I would be more angry than I've ever been in my life if this thing actually was real, and let us live like we're living. I would take a completely different approach. So many Christians think that if an atheist understands or comes to the knowledge of God, that they will just drop to their knees and worship. Almost every atheist I know would be like, dude, what are you doing? Look at this place. Yeah. Why didn't you come down and tell us this 1,000 years ago and save billions of lives from wars fighting over their imaginary friend when you could have solved it, you could have fixed it? Where have you been?
Yeah, I disagree. I think you would come to the realization within an instant of who you are and who it is, what it is, and it would totally, like I said, it would put you on your face.
Okay. If you guys are okay with it, we would like to show you the trailer. John, your laptop's already hooked up. We're just going to show you the short trailer to the film, just really quick. It is beautiful. This whole setup, guys. This is just amazing. Seriously, I just want to tell you that San Diego is just gorgeous.
While he's setting that up, we've got a raffle. Some of you bought some raffle tickets, so Debbie's gonna go ahead and you want to hold it. She's gonna reach in. Everybody pray. Hope you win. It works. Stop laughing at me.
Ticket number 622.
622. Hey.
You're atheist, right?
Now that wasn't 666.
This is for adults. That's what it is. Okay, this is for a car emblem. If you don't want the Darwin, you can pick out whatever car emblem you want. You can go for the T-Rex eating a fish. That's my personal favorite. Okay, ticket number 614.
614. 6.
Must be present to win. 614.
Next. Above or below?
632.
632. Oh, this is getting exciting.
Okay, now.
One more.
Signed book by Seth Andrews.
Never heard of it.
We are in disagreement. We have two.
The only podcast I know is Dogma Debate.
Uh-oh, who had that close to? 615.
There it is. 615.
They were my very first purchase on the raffle.
Oh, purchase. Oh, okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you guys so much. Are we ready for the preview?
won't do that.
I won't do that.
But you can do it with the Bible.
Because my salvation doesn't depend on a country.
All the more reason why you should not do that with the Bible.
God is not supposed to be the author of confusion.
We are in disagreement. We have two completely opposing worldviews, and that comes out.
Well, John and I are good friends despite the fact that we understand we are clearly enemies in this social movement.
Guys like us shouldn't get along as well as we do. But we do.
Do you think I deserve to go to hell?
You're passing a judgment. You don't want God to pass a judgment.
Basically, John Christy heard my show. He's been listening to a lot of atheist podcasts and stuff. He wants to do this documentary called My Week in Atheism, and he's staying with me for a few days. He's coming with me to Austin for the American Atheist Convention. He's one of these guys that we're pretty convinced is going to be an atheist in 12 months.
There are a generation of non-believers that are not coming from belief. There's a generation of non-believers coming around that never had it. And I think that they're going to have an attitude a lot like
The simplest thing is, philosophically speaking, it is the lack of belief in God or the rejection of theistic claims. It's not the assertion that there is no God.
I think people have a moral obligation to be reasonable, and I think once they're reasonable, they'll become atheists like me all by themselves.
If you have that simple definition for objective moral standard, then everything the Bible teaches is in one.
I'm trying to understand your side. You know, I'm not just holding my Bible tightly and saying I must believe. I'm welcoming your objections. Because it's really upon all of us to know why we believe what we believe and to be able to defend our faith.
Hi everybody, you guys probably don't know who I am, but I'm Caesar with Dogma Debate, a volunteer. I just want to first of all extend thanks from David Smalley. He is going to be in just a few minutes over at the Dogma Debate table signing books, so if you guys are interested in getting a book with his signature, he'll be there for a few minutes, so feel free, and thank you all for coming. Thank you.
One more thing real quick before everyone leaves. Right after we go say thank you and get our signatures and everything from David Smalley, we're all going to head just about a block up the street to the Studio Diner for some delicious, famous studio food and beer. And everyone's welcome. Please come. I think John is there. That's where we'll be doing the tug of war to find out who's right. So please join us. We need all the hands we can get because apparently God is really powerful and he's on his side. So thank you all for coming and we'll see you soon.